Gary is a San Diego financial solutions attorney, protecting people like you. The Word on Wealth team of financial experts is here to answer your questions and help preserve your family's financial future. Now, here's
You're live.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. This is Gary Quackenbush on the Word on Wealth. It's so good to have you along. I hope you all had a good holiday week. It's been fantastic. Today is one of those days where I get super excited because, as you know, on Wednesdays here on the Word on Wealth, our very famous guest we have is the one and only real estate expert that we love and use here in San Diego, and that is Ken Pecus of the Pecus Group. Ken, how are you doing today, man?
Hello, Gary. Welcome to our fine city.
Absolutely.
I said that.
It sounds good.
You've been gone. I'm just welcoming you back. Okay, you probably haven't been gone, but
no, I have. I was out. Yeah, was it last week? I was on a trip with a group of young men. We had 7 young men and 4 leaders, and we went out to the Colorado River in the wild, literally it was fun. And we go to a really remote campsite where there's no facilities, no nothing. You're really literally on the shore of the Colorado River, out in the desert, and we ride quads and boats and shoot, and it's just a kick. Super fun.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? So much for the South Pole. You were climbing Mount Everest.
We had you doing so many different adventurous things, Gary. I mean, you were looking great.
Yeah, you were even on the Nile. Yeah.
Well, you might as well be. It's funny, the Colorado River, because that's what they use for irrigation, is at night it drops about 2 feet, and in the morning it comes back up. So you have to pull the boat out at night, or else you want to hit a sandbar in the morning. It's fun. I've done that years and years, and it gets hot. It's like 105 degrees, which when you're on the water getting wet all the time, 105 is just like the perfect temperature. It's what you want to be at. It was fun. Cooled off at night.
Awesome.
Yeah. Wasn't as
Totally
exotic as Argentina, but it's one of these, super high adrenaline rush things where if you're not skiing, we taught, let's see, of the 7 boys, we got 5 of them. We showed them how to barefoot ski, got them to ski without any skis at all. That's always really thrilling. They go, is that even possible? And we show them how. That's super cool.
That's amazing.
Very
That's
fun.
amazing. My idea of wilderness is like maybe going to In-N-Out Burger. That's kind of nice as opposed to like a normal restaurant. So hey, I'm impressed. Although we did have you also kayaking the Amazon, just so you know.
Kayaking, that would be that'd be interesting. Someday I'm gonna go visit the Amazon, other than the Amazon.com. So someday I will. Well, and we'll have to do that when we send. Well, instead of your Argentina adventure, you should do that, Ken. You should be kayaking the Amazon when you do your next trip. The guess where Ken is trip. Hey, I just wanted to get into this real estate thing. So many people. I mean, in San Diego County, it's wonderful. In Southern California, it's just wonderful that to be in the real estate industry and to talk about it, because it affects everyone, whether you're buying a home or renting an apartment, whatever. The real estate market affects everybody. And I was really excited to, get together and talk about our topic today. We want to really talk about, what if you, like, what would it take to think about like building a rental portfolio, if you will, and what would it take to actually start building a rental portfolio? And I think the reason we're doing this is because so many people think, oh my gosh, I have to have, $1 million to start a rental portfolio, and I'll never be able to afford that, and I can't afford the payments, and I don't know the numbers. So I think it's exciting that we're going to talk about this today. So give us an introduction to rental portfolio building, Ken.
Yeah, this is such an important topic that I think so many people just automatically put in their brains that you have to move the earth to make things happen, and in reality you don't. So in thinking about how to bring this on, I'm going to just convey a little story to you, and it's a story about how even though I was already a real estate agent, how my eyes suddenly opened through another property owner, and it opened my eyes into how things could be done, because so many people overestimate what should happen in a short amount of time, like a year, and they greatly underestimate what can happen in like 7 to 10 years. So the concept of a rental portfolio is a long-term look, but the long-term is somewhere between 7 to 15 years, maybe up to 20 years. And so here's the story. I was out with a bunch of friends. We went on a cruise. That sort of like your river thing, but I was on a cruise ship and I had, restaurants on there. So it's almost the same.
Yeah. Sounds the same.
And it's almost the same. So I had we were there with a bunch of friends, and the cruise was broken up into 3 different cruises. There was like a 7-day cruise, a 4-day cruise, and another 7-day cruise. And you could like pick which one. You could even put like the 4 and the 7-day together, make it a little longer. So went on the cruise. It was in the Caribbean. Can't remember the exact. I know we went to the Panama Canal, whatever. And when you're out there on the water, you get a lot of chance to talk to people. I got a chance to meet lots of people I didn't know. And one day I was in the afternoon, the pizza kitchen or whatever, and there was one of the guys that I didn't know, but had seen around. And so I just sat down and said, hey, can I sit there? And started getting to know him. And
About 2 minutes.
it was a really good conversation. He was a little bit older than me. I'd say he might have been like 20 years older than me. And he told me that he was going on all of the cruises, meaning that he was doing the 7-day, the 4-day, and the 7-day. And I said, wow, that's a lot of time to take off from work. He goes, yeah, but actually, I've got this other trip. I'm going on, this 20 trip. I get home for a couple of days, and I'm going on a 21 day. And of course, that absolutely got my brain going. What does this person do? And that he can just be gone. He's still pretty young. And what does he do that he can just be gone all this time? And so, of course, of that trip, I found out that he's kind of retired, but he has his own rental portfolio. And from that, from other people telling me, he apparently not only had like a beautiful house here in San Diego on the beach. He had like a RV that was larger than known to mankind. All these different things, and I'm like, and on top of it, super guy. I mean, the conversation was great. So I got his phone number from a mutual friend, and I called him up and said, hey, Don, and his name was Don, and I said, can I take you out to dinner? I just want to find out how you got into rental properties and just figure out what you did and the ins and outs. And so we agreed, and that's where my story began, with that dinner.
Fascinating. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you sharing that. In fact, coming up next, you guys, you're here listening to the Word on Wealth with me, attorney Gary Quackenbush, and Ken Pecus, our real estate professional expert, and we're learning about how to build a rental portfolio. Now we know Ken's inspiration for doing so. We get to, coming up next, hear from some specifics about how to start thinking about, consider it, kind of map it out so that you can put together your own rental portfolio, and then maybe be retired before you turn 30. Is that what Ken is? We'll be talking about that coming up next. Ken's number, 619-977-8419, 619-977-8419. We'll be back in a minute here on the Word on Wealth.
You've got answers. This is the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Gary's here to give you peace of mind with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary to build, protect, and transfer your wealth. 855-500-TRUST. GQLaw.com. You're saving and investing for the future, and that's good. Have you ever stopped to think, where does my money actually?
Clicking gun.
With Anthony Wright.
Most Christians just don't understand that the money they save for retirement usually helps fund the abortion industry and other liberal anti-family causes. But did you know that with just a few minutes of your time, we can screen and clean your investments at no cost to you? It's absolutely complimentary. Just go to the website right now, download a free copy of my book.
That clicking gun, Gary.
No,
It's
I'm going to
free as well.
reboot.
You
again. I
deserve
think I
to
got
know
2
the
minutes. I'm going to
truth
reboot again.
as the investor. The choice is yours. You can keep doing what you're life savings with
financial decision of your lifetime. If you're planning to buy or sell a home in San Diego County, do what I do and work with the true San Diego real estate experts. Ken Pecus and the Pecus Group helped
I
me.
mean, one day when you have time, you should get with Darnell, see if you can get it to go away.
Yeah, on wealth. He's our expert. He's got integrity, exceptional service, deep knowledge of the San Diego, Coronado, and South Bay regions. These are just some of the reasons that Ken Pecus has completed hundreds of transactions. He manages a powerful team of professionals at the Pecus Group, from single family attached homes to luxury.
Ken did great last week, by the way.
Pecus is ready to help you.
Like seriously, like had he not said it on air, you would never know he'd never hosted a radio show before.
Wow. That's pecus.com. Perfect. Or call 619-977-8419.
So good to know if you
Outreach, the word on wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Call or click to request your free initial consultation or to talk with a member of the team. Call Gary at 855-500-TRUST, gqlaw.com.
you're live.
Welcome to Word on Wealth. We're really glad to have you along. Today's our Wednesday where we deal with all things real estate with our real estate expert, Ken Pecus. Ken Pecus is the founder of the Pecus Group at eXp Realty. He just happens to be my friend, my personal advisor with real estate purchases, and he's helped my family a lot for many years in putting together their own real estate portfolio. So Ken is not speaking out of turn or even out of his area of expertise at all. This is not a, how do you think it should happen? And let me know. This is really, really what Ken does. He has his own real estate portfolio. He's helped, like I said, my family members with them as well. So we are, Ken told us his story about how he got interested in it because he was on a vacation and found somebody that was basically super happy to be on vacation and making money at the time he was actually gone. Ken found out that he had a real estate rental portfolio, and we are going from there. So Ken, welcome back to the show, man. Oh, that's right. You never left. By the way, if you want to know Ken's number, 619-977-8419. That's the only number you will call with anything to do with real property. 619-977-8419. All right, Ken, tell us more about your real estate, how to build your portfolio.
All right. So finishing out that story in that dinner, my friend explained to me that he had just gotten out of the Navy, had just a little bit of money, but he had a VA. He had VA benefits. And so what he did was he was out in Long Beach. This dinner happened back in like the late 90s. So it was 20 years earlier. So it was the late 70s. He bought a house in Long Beach, zero down, zero anything. And he went and got a job, just a normal job. I think it was being a technician somewhere. And he just bought it for zero down. And after a couple of years, he actually needed a slightly larger house. So he suddenly realized that the house that he bought could rent out for what he was paying in his mortgage. So he still had his VA, and he was able to use the rest of his VA entitlement to buy a second house. So he actually went in owner occupied and bought a second house, and wham, he had two houses. And then over the years, he discovered the power of the 1031 exchange, which we've kind of talked about before. And he started to gradually take the equity of that first house, and he did a 1031 exchange going into a duplex. He said, I just went into a duplex. And he goes, but then that duplex went up in like 2 years. And then I went into a quad. And he goes, and then my house started going up. And I'm like, this is interesting. So he sold his house, took the tax gain, and he went and bought another quad. And from there, it was all equity based. So by the time we got around to my vacation, he said, I had to stop buying property. There's just nothing I can do with the money. That's all I do. You know, I kind of run my own property management, but I have people that work for me and we collect rents, fix things, and we go on from there. Because I quit my job not too long after that. So not too long after that was probably about 6 or 7 years, just so you know. It wasn't like a year or two.
Right. It's something.
So
Yeah, it's a long-term thing. It's not an overnight success, which everybody kind of thinks, oh, that person's an overnight success. And sure, he was, as long as overnight was 6 years.
exactly. And, you know, he worked really hard at it. It's
Sure.
not like it just comes, you just do something. So that got me setting on the path of how I was going to, embark. I was already a real estate agent for 8 or 9 years at that point, but now I really wanted to focus and see if I can develop a niche for investments, in which I did. So over the years, I've come up with a great way of in my mind, transposing what he taught me and then what I've done with other people on building their portfolios. And it all starts with having a general understanding
Right.
of how this works. So normally I'm sitting with somebody in my conference room or whatever, and I have a little piece of paper and I do a little drawing. So I'm going to encourage you, Gary, Noah, you do it too. And anybody who's listening out there that's not driving, just do this. So on a blank sheet of paper, draw a box, just a outline of a box. And in the middle of the box, put another box, like a little house. You can put a little roof on it. Okay.
All right.
And so you have a little house in the box. Okay. Right beside it, draw another box. Okay. And then this time in that box, put 2 little houses, one above the other.
Got it.
And then, okay, I'm going to repeat it one more time. Do the box right below the first one, and then put 4 little houses in the corner. It's all about visuals. But once you see this,
yeah,
it'll make total sense. And then draw another box finally in the 4th corner, and this time try to just put in 8 little squares in it. Okay. This
Got
one,
it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. So now you got this little visual in front of you. So when somebody buys a house, let's say, I'm just going to say you buy it in somewhere in San Diego in a nice little neighborhood, and you bought the house for like $700,000, or whatever, and you bought the house right now for $700,000. If you went to go rent that house out, if it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, your rent on that house is probably going to be something around, it could be like $3,500. I'm just going to pick a number. Depends on the neighborhood. If you go into that same neighborhood, let's just say it's the College area, and you decide you want to buy a duplex. What's really interesting about that is the duplex is not going to cost you $1.4 million, double the price. The duplex is probably going to cost you about $900,000. And when you go to rent those little properties in the duplex, more than likely, if it's a 2-bedroom and a 2-bedroom, each one of those is probably going to rent for somewhere between like $2,300 to $2,500 in those neighborhoods, because it's a 2-bedroom. So if you put a little $2,300 on each one, it'll make sense on that 2 thing.
Okay. Got it.
You go to the same neighborhood, and now you want to buy 4 units in that same neighborhood. And if, let's say we were looking in that same College area neighborhood and you're looking for 4 units, you'd probably be looking at about $1.5 million to buying it. Okay. However, with those 4 units, and that's probably 4 2-bedrooms or something, depending upon where you're going, those rents are, once again, it's going to be $2,300, $2,300, $2,300, $2,300.
Okay.
And then the interesting thing is, if you were in a College area and you want to buy that 8-unit building, your building over there is probably somewhere around $2 million, maybe $2.1 million. And the units might be a little bit smaller. You might have some 1-bedrooms and you might have some 2-bedrooms. So the rents will go between like $1,800 to $2,500. So you kind of average maybe $2,100 a month. I'll just say $2,100, just an average.
Okay.
All right. So
Almost there. Okay, got it.
All right. So what you'll suddenly start to notice is that as you get, and this is the key for people to understand, as you keep adding units to a property, you're diminishing the amount of value that it costs to acquire, that is the cost of land. Okay.
Right.
Because in order to get 8 units or 4 units or 2 units or 1 unit, very often the land is very similar. So in that first property you bought, that it was a single family house where you get to enjoy the yard and you get the dogs to run and play and the kids are in the backyard, you're paying a lot of money in San Diego County for that land. So the more structures you get on the same piece of land, the higher your rental performance will be of any individual property. So if you did the quick numbers on the 8 units, your rents are now well above like $17,000 a month, right? When you did the 4 units, your rents are close to $10,000 a month. When you did the 2 units, your rents are $5,000, and when you did the single family house, your rent is $3,500. But the interesting thing is, those rents that you get from the higher number of units on the individual piece of land generally more than debt service what it costs to get the loan. And so if you started with the one house, like let's say you bought a VA, no, and you held that house for like 4 years or 5 years and you built some equity, now you have some equity that you could potentially put as a down payment. Plus, if you have VA, let's say you just had VA again, you could buy 2 units with VA, but in this time, even though you're going up on price, you're increasing your rental rate on that property. And it exponentially happens as you get higher. And the reason it takes more time is because at the beginning, you're basically striving to just make the payment.
Mhm.
You know, you just make the payment. And heck, we're all having to live somewhere. So that's why I tell a lot of people, you just start with your very first house that you bought. You just start with the very first house you bought and you build some equity. And if you don't have any extra cash to build additional units, okay? So when you're looking at that little diagram, do you see how Gary, do you see how the land value is minimizing each time?
Yes. Yeah, because you have the same, maybe a little bit bigger land, but could be potentially exactly the same size land. And now you're going from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 units in that same piece of land. Yeah. And then, so you don't have to worry about the land. You're going to have, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
By the
Well,
way,
and then-
I know we're going to, we've been talking about this for a second, so I just want to interrupt you for a second.
Go ahead.
This is Ken Pecus. Here on the Word on Wealth, we're talking, this is our Real Estate Wednesday, where we have Ken come on with us every Wednesday, co-hosting the show with me. His number is 619-977-8419.
2
If
minutes.
you have any questions about what we're talking about, and you want to ask Ken, like how to get into it, you want to have that sit down conversation with him, where he will, talk to you about the possibilities of how to get into, real estate investments and real estate property, like the property that we're talking about now. It's 619-977-8419. All right, we got our diagram, Ken. I got my 1, 2, 4, and 8 unit properties, and I can see the numbers. So now you're going to keep going and telling us exactly how do we make this happen?
Right, exactly. So the biggest thing is you have to first see how this happens. So
Mhm.
once you understand that the more structures you put on a given piece of land, the higher rate of return that investment property is going to be. Everybody that owns, in general, I shouldn't say everybody, but in general, the majority of people that own these big apartment buildings,
Wait a minute.
if they're not institutional, they have 30 units, 40 units, 50 units. A lot of them just started with duplexes or small ones and use the power of appreciation and the 1031 exchange and the fact that people need rents, need housing to build their portfolios. So this lays the groundwork if you can get this into your mindset about where to go from there.
Okay, so I think I've got it. I've got it written down. Actually, those of you that are watching this on YouTube, you just saw me hold up the picture explaining what Ken was talking about. You're listening to The Word on Wealth with Ken Pecus, my co-host here today on our Real Estate Wednesdays on The Word on Wealth. His number is 619-977-8419. If you're going to need some help with maybe you've inherited some money and you want to help figure out what to do with it, you need help distributing it to your siblings, that's my job. 855-500-TRUST. All right, coming up next, we are going to go more than just the general understanding. We're going to get some of the how-tos right here from Ken Pecus and Gary Quackenbush on The Word on Wealth.
You don't need to know everything. You just need to know where to find answers you can trust when you need them. Welcome to The Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush. We're here to help you build, protect, and transfer everything you've worked hard for with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary and the team at gqlaw.com. 855-500-TRUST. You're not alone. Ask for the legal help you need. Call Gary and the team at GQ Law, 855-500-TRUST, or go online and download Gary's free ebooks and videos. Read Gary's blogs. Call or click to request your free consultation or to talk with a member of the GQ team. That's gqlaw.com, 855-500-TRUST.
Go on.
Oh, it's a good day here at The Word on Wealth. We got our Real Estate Wednesday with our expert, Ken Pecus. General understanding, the concept of how to, or what a rental portfolio should look like and why we do it. Now, Ken is moving into our next step in our training today on how to invest in real property. Ken.
I love the word training because I actually do this class for a lot of real estate agents so they can understand and convey it to their clients. Because I think people make things too complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you just kind of look at things, I mean, what you have in front of you, it's not a Bloomberg chart there, right? It's just a little scribble.
Well,
but
obviously
if
you
you
can't
get that
see what I've drawn here. This is Bloomberg quality.
Is it Bloomberg? Okay, all right.
Oh,
I
it's good.
apologize.
My
I
houses
should
have shingles and stuff like that. In fact, this one over here has a power wall on the side of it.
Oh, okay. We're already moving up on equity there.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm for the rest of this discussion, I'm going to assume that we're talking about people that have limited resources to get started. Meaning, if you have a few million sitting aside or whatever, the same thing works, but you don't have the same challenges for entry that that maybe, a standard, you and I, who's working with a normal job does. But the idea here is this is open to everybody to be able to do if you give it enough time.
All right.
All right. So the biggest, what should I say, impediment to entry is usually cash down payments. So when you go into buying a investment income property, in general, in San Diego at least, or in Southern California, the banks are looking for 20 to 25% down in general. And that is usually very difficult for some people to come through, especially in our market if they're just starting out. But when you go and you buy something owner occupied, you can get it as little as 3.5% down if it's conventional. That means if you were never part of the military or something like that, or 3.5% down or 0 down if you go with the VA. And like if you were in the military, that there's just a big advantage for you to get started. And it's a good benefit having spent your time, serving the country. It's a great benefit that you should really try to take advantage of when you can.
Absolutely.
So the whole idea is owner occupying. If you go and buy a house, so number one is you can personally rent and still hold in a rental portfolio, but it makes so much sense as if you just buy your first house with whatever money you have, and you think about it not as this is where I'm going to live the rest of my life, but this is what I'm going to use as a stepping stone to my next rental. Okay, so because if you don't own any of the property, you can come in, you can do, let's say it's 700,000. Let's do the same number. You can get it for 3.5%, as long as you can qualify for the loan. I mean, you have to have the correct job and whatever to get there. But let's say it's not 700,000. Let's just go ahead and start you're right out of college a couple of years. You don't have a lot of money, but you didn't amass a lot of debt, but you do have a steady paycheck. Buy a $400,000 condo or $350,000 condo, and buy it and occupy it. So sometimes people have a hard time with that occupying things, because when you owner occupy things, they'll buy it, whatever, and they want to rent it out right away. Well, the bank is only giving you that low down payment program because they are ensuring that you owner occupy, because when you owner occupy, there's less of a risk to the bank in terms of care and upkeep and keeping the payments current. So let's say you buy a 1-bedroom condo in El Cajon, I'm just going to pick a number, or Escondido, or wherever you'd like, and you bought it and you paid $375,000. Actually, I just sold 2 1-bedroom condos in Chula Vista, and they both sold for $375,000 each. And you had 3%, so you were able to scrape to get $10,000. You didn't have enough money for closing costs, so you were able to negotiate getting some closing costs paid by the seller because your agent was really good and understood how to wrap that in. And now you own a condo. So now you have this condo, you own property in California. You just start and make the payments and go about your way. Just go to work, make your mortgage payments every year. And this is what I mean about sometimes it takes time, especially if you don't have a lot of cash coming in right away. But with the way San Diego has been, over the course of the next 3 to 5 years or 4 years, you'll most likely see an appreciation that has happened in your condo. And your 375 condo very, very possibly could have gone to 425, 440, 450. Who knows? Who knows where that goes? But at that point, and depending on how you progress in your work, and as long as you keep paying your mortgage payment, you now actually have some equity you can work with differently than when you first started. And so at that point, you can take that extra equity. Now you might have 50,000, or now you might have 70,000, and tax law allows you to take all of that gain tax-free if it's your principal residence and you live there more than 2 years. So if you sold that, right, you now have, let's just say after closing costs, whatever, you have a net 50,000 to work with after 4 years or 3 years. Well, 50,000 is like 3%. You can start going up to 700 or 800,000. But what you could do is you could still use the same owner occupied plan, get a low down payment, low interest rate, the lowest interest rate, and go and owner occupy a duplex. Just get a 2-on-1, and that 2-on-1 could be, any number of places. It could be anywhere from Claremont to Escondido to College area to South Bay to East County. They're all over. And you do the same thing. You basically do the same thing. And this is for somebody that is, just doesn't have a whole lot of extra cash coming in. But what ends up happening is you'll still pay your monthly that you were paying before, but now you're going to have a second unit on there that's going to be paying you rent. That second unit, I can almost guarantee you, will offset the cost of the more expensive place. And how much money you are now paying on a monthly basis will actually go down to when you just had the first smaller condo.
Now,
And
let me
so-
interrupt you there and talk to you about, or just ask
Mhm.
a question about that. We're talking owner occupied because you get lower down payment depending on if you're VA or a regular person. So you're putting 3.5% down or whatever at the minimum. If that's owner occupied with a duplex, is it still considered owner occupied even though you're only in half of the building?
It is, as long as you owner occupy.
So
So, and you
owner-occupied
can
any part of
also
it.
do, yes, you can occupy, you can owner occupy with FHA and VA too. But you will have to claim the income that's coming in.
Yes.
You can't, it's not like free money that comes in. So you have to claim that income, but the bottom line is you also now have additional expenses as the rental unit. So it gets a little more complicated, and you're now officially into a rental, part owner occupied, which will necessitate, as you move on and on, you'll have to do 1031 exchanges, to protect those capital gains. But that is as you go down the line. But in the near term, your tenant is helping you pay the mortgage, which is helping you pay a larger mortgage down and helping you build.
2 minutes.
You're doing, in addition to the overall market, which we generally have been in an appreciation cycle or flat cycle. There's only been a couple of cycles in the last 30 years, in the early 90s, 2008, 9 and 10, that we actually had a negative appreciation. We had depreciation. Other than that, it's been small to very steady appreciation over the course of all this time in San Diego. And if you went back into the 60s, 70s, 80s, you'll see the same cycle.
Mhm.
So that's why this is a long look. You have to keep that long look
Exactly.
on there.
So, okay, so we're to that point now. You guys, you know what Ken's talking about. He knows what he's talking about. 619-977-8419. I'm giving out his number so much because I just want you to, if it's you or a friend, if you have a friend that's like, oh yeah, he's totally into real estate, she's totally into real estate, she knows exactly how to do this stuff, that's great. But if you don't, that's why we have Ken Pecus helping us out on these type of things for our radio listeners. And if you are one of our listeners and you want to talk to Ken about this, how to kind of get yourself set up for the future, now's the time to call 619-977-8419. Just give Ken a call. That's why we have him partnered with us on the show today. That's why we have him every Wednesday. So just keep listening and listening. When we come back, we are working a little bit. We got up to the duplexes in Claremont College area, the owner occupy, and we're understanding that. We're going to have Ken. We're going to go right to the top of the hour. We'll have Ken here partnered with me here on the show today. So we're going to give him the time as soon as we get back for Ken to finish up his discussion. This is all good stuff. Hope you're taking notes. Hope you're listening up on the Word on Wealth. If you need help from me because you just inherited the money that you now want to invest with Ken's situation and help, so he can help you invest that, call me, 855-500-TRUST. All right. Hang in there. We'll be right back here on the Word on Wealth.
You've got questions. We've got answers. This is the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Gary's here to give you peace of mind with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary to build, protect, and transfer your wealth. 500 Trust. GQLaw.com.
Gary, your team at GQ Law are experts at solving IRS and state tax problems. Talk about that.
When people have a tax problem, it tends to really stress them out. And one of the things we've been able to do is figure out how to resolve tax problems. One thing we might be doing is setting up a payment plan or getting a collection delay, maybe getting a determination that the person shouldn't have to pay the taxes at all. We do offers and compromise. We do audit reconsiderations. And one of the things that's a really powerful tool that some people don't recognize is sometimes bankruptcy can be used to actually eliminate taxes when there's certain conditions of the code that are met. So we can do all kinds of things. After we analyze your situation, we can figure out what's available, discuss your options, and figure out which ones to implement, what it's going to cost, how long it's going to take. And we can get people out from under all kinds of tax problems so they can sleep again. That's our goal.
Request your free initial consultation. GQLaw.com, 855-500-TRUST. GQLaw.com.
What aren't we?
Children's children. Hi, I'm attorney Gary Quackenbush of the Word on Wealth with a personal invitation for you to join us every weekday afternoon right here at 2 p.m. We'll explore ways you can build, manage, protect, and transfer your wealth. All types of wealth, including financial, health, relationship, and more. The Word on Wealth, weekdays from 2 to 3. Learn more at wordonwealth.com. That's wordonwealth.com.
Tell a friend about this broadcast outreach, The Word on Wealth, with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Call or click to request your free initial consultation or to talk with a member of the team. Call Gary at 855-500-TRUST. GQLaw.com.
Like,
Happy Wednesday, everybody. We got real estate expert Ken Pecus here explaining to us. This is fun. He's explaining to us like how to get into real estate, like build a real estate portfolio. And that may sound fancy, and it is, but if you're living in Southern California, especially in San Diego County, just listen to Ken, listen up. I mean, this is real estate is where it's at. I know that's how, a lot of people make a lot of money, a lot of good decisions, and it's not all about, I got $2 million sitting around, I don't know what to do with it. It's a matter of how you work into it, and it's a matter of patience. And I know that's hard. It's hard to be patient, but your patience will pay off. Ken, I had a friend that his whole theory, this is just really quick. He was a tax professional friend of mine, and he had and this is several years ago, but he told me, his theory was he bought this house for like $300,000, and then he moved up to a house that was worth $700,000. Then he moved up to a house that was worth $1 million. And he moved up to a house that was worth 1.3, but it was just his personal residence. And every time he'd never increased his mortgage, he just would pull equity out of cash, and then he would just keep putting it back in. And basically he got to where by the time he was retirement age, house is completely paid off, had a whole bunch of money in the bank, with some of the equity transfers, he'd bought a duplex, and now that was, both sides of the duplex were paying him. And it was just a matter of, his thing was, people are so impatient. It's like you get started and you figure, okay, I'm 40 years old. Oh my gosh, I'm 50. I haven't started in real estate yet. Well, you don't retire when you're 55. If you're starting at 50, then retire 15 years later. I mean, you can do a lot in that period of time. It's just a matter of, there is no instant quick fix. It's a matter of being patient. So I really appreciate you being here. Make sure Ken's number is in your Rolodex, on your cell phone, written on your forehead, 619-977-8419. All right, Ken, we don't have a long time, but I need you to help us on your Ken Pecus wrap up on building your real estate portfolio.
I know. I feel like I need 2 hours sometimes.
You do, but you're going to have to wait till next Wednesday. So you can kind of leave it hanging, because we will be able to finish this up. Yeah.
I'll probably leave it a little bit hanging. Well,
Okay.
just on the other side, I have multiple people. So I've had people that have started with one very, very good friend of mine. he owned 1/3 of a triplex with somebody else. And we started this process. And at that time, I don't believe, this was like in the late 90s, I don't believe he made any more than, say, $25,000 a year or $30,000 a year as a social worker. By the time we followed this exact recipe, and by the time we got to 2007, we sold all of the properties. He had ended up buying up that thing. We'd sold all of those properties. He reinvested those properties out of state, got a whole different kind of cash positions in both Florida and Texas because we had built equity here. And from then on, he has been independently wealthy. He now loans money to all sorts of people, hard money loans, does all that sort of stuff because he built such huge amounts of it. And his stuff was done within less than 10 years. And was my age at the time. So that brings another point I want to bring up here really fast. We're in San Diego. We are gifted with a brilliant equity growth urban area. And I say that is not the case in just every part of the country. San Diego, Boston, the Bay Area, Miami, New York, these urban areas that are strong and that are not necessarily dependent on manufacturing or the whim of whatever is going on in the technological industry, provide a lot of stability to people. So and we have limited land, especially in San Diego, Boston, New York, San Francisco, in LA, we have limited land for the population growth. That gives you the knowledge that people are always going to need a shelter, a roof over their heads. And if they need a roof over their heads, that is the security that your investment portfolio is going to continue to build. So that's where even if you're in rent control, even if we have all sorts of things, we might slow down on how much the cash on cash return is, rate of return is every single month. But what doesn't change is the equity appreciation. So let's say we go 5, 6, 10 years and the cash that's coming out every single month is still not exactly where you're going, but now you're getting closer to retirement and you need cash to live, right? But because you built your equity position here, you can take this equity position and you can do a 1031 exchange into, say, New Mexico, or you can go into Texas, or you can go into Colorado, and you can probably get 3 times the rent for what you're getting for the equity position here. And boom, overnight, you all of a sudden have a cash flowing property that is going to be able to support you. So it's a large scale. So you're not dependent on paying things off in San Diego. You're just dependent on building the equity position in San Diego for when you need that cash, you can then change it into a different kind of investment return. So it's something to keep in mind, whether you're younger, older, if you fall into your 50s, if you fall into your 60s. It just depends on how long you think you're going to live and want to live and how you want to live. It really isn't too late to start ever. So, all right. So that makes sense. Something else I want to tell people, and we'll go into a little bit more next time, is often people have had a house that they are ready to buy a new house. And they are fortunate in that they actually don't need to sell their property. They might have had a condo. It might have been their starter condo. It might have been their starter home. They don't have to sell their home to buy a new property. They actually have, they got bonuses. They've been saving money. They actually have enough money to put a down payment on a new house. And they can qualify for the new mortgage payment. So they say, you know what, I'm going to get into rental property. I'm going to turn my house or my condo, whatever it is, I'm not going to sell it. I'm going to keep it. And I'm going to turn it into rental. And on the surface, that's brilliant. That's exactly what we all want you to do. Except that's not what I want you to do. If you have equity in that property, if you have built up equity in that property, I want you to sell that property within 2 years of leaving that property. Because Gary, you correct me if I'm wrong. When can you take the capital gains exclusion for your personal residence?
You have to be 2 years. Within 2 years.
2 years, right?
Yep.
Within 2 years. So you need you need to sell that property, in my opinion, and take all of the gain you just made tax-free. And that's a huge thing, because instead of turning that into a rental, remember my very first lesson where you drew the first square and you put the littlest house. That littlest house, one house in the big square versus 2, 4, whatever, is the worst cash generating rental you could have. It's better than no rental, but it's the worst thing you can have. So if you have a condo or a house and you're going to keep it as a rental, you're absolutely not using your equity in the right decision. So sell the property, take all of your capital gains tax-free, right? And then reinvest in the property. Don't get out of the market, reinvest in the property. And it might sound like I'm self-serving, meaning that it's, hey, give me a couple more houses. I mean, on the surface, but if you look at it pragmatically, if you just sit there and look at the numbers, and because once you turn it into a full-fledged rental, to turn it back into a single family, into your principal residence where you can take capital gains tax-free down the line, it's a very complicated process. It's not like I'm just going to go back in and move in for 2 years. You have to do whatever. So from then on, if it's the rental, anything you do from then on, you're going to have to exchange it, and you'll never really be able to tap into that money that you built. But by doing it this way, you get it tax-free. You also, are going to build a new 2-year thing on the new house
2 minutes.
And you can take this equity and right away try to invest it in a 2-unit, a 3-unit, or a 4-unit, depending upon how much equity you have. And ideally, you'll have at least 20% because you've been building equity in this first house or condo that you bought for a while. Because if it was like, let's say your equity position in this house was 100,000 or 150,000. Well, that is, that's 20% of 500,000. Well, maybe you could go buy a small little duplex out in a little more suburban, like out in East County or way South County. Now, the farther you get from the coast, the better the prices go. They go down. Yet the rents, they don't go down by the same appreciable values. It's interesting. Rents are expensive throughout San Diego County. They are a little cheaper as you go, away from the coast, but they're still pretty.
Not a minute.
But the acquisition and getting into the property is less. So I think it's really important that you consider not selling that first house or first condo if you're fortunate enough to be able to buy. I mean, that you go ahead and sell it, not sell it,
Right.
so that you can reinvest it.
That's excellent, Ken.
That makes
Really
sense.
appreciate. I love Wednesdays. We get to talk about real estate. It's true, near to my heart, near and dear. I've been in San Diego for my whole life, and it's always been great. I mean, you're right. This is one of our brilliant urban growth areas in San Diego. And for those of you that are thinking about this and saying, hey, this might be something I can get into, it's really time to call Ken, 619-977-8419. You can also go to his website, Ken Pecus. That's Ken, PECUS.com. Get a hold of his team and find out how to get into this. This is Gary Quackenbush and Ken Pecus. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow here on The Word on Wealth, and Ken will be back next Wednesday. All right, Ken, thanks a lot, man. Have a great rest of your week. All right, bye,
You too,
everybody.
Gary.
Talk to you tomorrow right here on The Word on Wealth. Bye.
Tell a friend about the Word on Wealth, featured since 1995, with financial solutions attorney Gary Quackenbush, an expert in estate planning, wills and trusts, and tax problem solving. Gary is past president of the California Society of Tax Consultants. Reach out to us. The Word on Wealth team of financial experts is here to answer your questions and help preserve your family's financial future. The information you hear on The Word on Wealth is for general information purposes only. This program discusses general financial and legal topics. Seek legal advice from a competent lawyer for your individual legal needs.